Welcome back to my analog series, or in this case maybe more of a photography series, because I decided to take a look at all of the gear and the cameras that I've bought over the years and make a little list of 7 items that I would definitely buy again if I would start from scratch. So I'm shooting film for about 4 years now, and I've took several thousand pictures on film, and I spent way too much money on gear over the years, and I thought, which of the items that I bought do really help me out in my photography? And the list will start with the more cheaper options and get more expensive in the end. This list is not just for analog photographers, but also for digital photographers, not just for beginners, but for everyone in general. If you find something interesting and maybe something new that might be of good value for you, then please consider liking and subscribing. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. First item on this list is a rocket blower, and to be honest, I can only recommend these to everyone, to film photographers, digital photographers, videographers. It doesn't really matter, because this one goes with me on every work that I do. I use it to clean the lenses, to clean my film cameras, to blow off the dust from my negatives, to scan them, and even to clean the sensor of my digital camera. Mostly I'm taking a microfiber cloth with me as well, so I can rub off the smudges and then blow off the dust with this one. And yeah, I can only recommend it. It goes for around 8 to 15 bucks depending on where you buy it, so not expensive, quite cheap, and it sits in my camera bag and goes with me on every photo walk, so really handy, can only recommend it. Let's move on. Number 2 on the list are camera straps. Of course, most cameras that you buy come with the strap, made by the manufacturer, but most of the time I don't really like those straps. Often they are made from nylon, and especially in summer, if you're wearing them right on the skin, walking around in the sun with a t-shirt, they get uncomfortable quite fast. And that's why I spend some money on different camera straps. For example, this one, this is made from cotton. It costs around 15 bucks on eBay, used but still in the original packaging, and it's really comfortable, quite sturdy, and I love the look of it. Of course, if you're someone who likes to put their camera in a camera bag, or if you're shooting with a really small point and shoot style camera that fits in your pocket, a camera strap might not be the right thing for you. But for someone like me who likes to wear their cameras around the neck all the time, to have them ready to shoot if I see something interesting, having a camera strap is really handy, especially if it's one that's not getting uncomfortable when I wear it the whole day. And this one is also made from cotton. It's a lot thicker than the other one, and I can really recommend these. Number 3 on my personal list are shutter release cables. The prices range around 5 to 15 euros for a analog one, and up to 50 for a digital one. Of course, this is not a thing that everyone needs. If you're someone like me who likes to experiment with older films in difficult lighting situations, like the Portra 100T that are shot at night time, a shutter release cable is vital for that. Or if you're doing infrared photography or nighttime photography, or if you're, for example, shooting self-portraits where you want to have a custom delay for the shutter and a custom amount of frames for the camera to take, I think a remote control is really handy to have around. Number 4 on the list are camera bags. The prices on these will heavily vary on what you're looking for. My go-to bag is this one from Kalahari, and it was around 30 or 40 bucks, I think. It's not that big, but it's big enough for me. It has room for a bottle, it has room for my rocket blower, extra film if I need some, extra batteries. I can fit at least 2 SLRs in here with 2 lenses, or maybe 1 SLR with 4 lenses. I even used it as my main bag for the holiday, where I put my wallet in here and my Agfa Isolette and a point and shoot. And this was the main bag for the whole holiday. So really handy. Obviously, like bag that I've just shown you is for a smaller kit. So if you want to use a medium format camera or tele lenses or something like that, that's really big, you need a different bag. But that's the beauty of that. You have many different options for many different styles, like the desert ones that I use, going up to more casual or modern black ones, leather ones, and all of that. So you have a really wide range of different styled camera bags and different sizes of camera bags to choose from. Number 5 are fast primes. Of course, I'm someone who doesn't really shoot with zoom lenses, but in my experience, in my opinion, I think primes are the best teachers for photography, because if you don't like your framing, you have to move. You have to find a new spot or another composition that fits the photo, and you can't just zoom in and zoom out to find a new composition. You have to move, and those limitations really get you to think about the picture that you want to take, and I think that's really a great thing. Personally, I would recommend buying a vintage lens. Just because of the fact that, first of all, they have character and an interesting look most of the time, and they are quite cheap compared. So for example, this Helios is a 58 f2 and it's around 50 bucks on eBay. Of course, f2 isn't the fastest prime. There are zoom lenses out there with an f2 aperture, but they are way more expensive than this one. And it's just a lovely lens to use. I mean, Greg Fraser used it for the Batman and Dune, so I mean, that's good, pretty good reason to use it, I think. On the other side, we have more expensive primes. For example, this one is a Nikkor AIS 50mm 1.2, and yeah, it's around 300 bucks, I think. Great lens, and of course, 300 bucks for a vintage prime isn't that cheap. But compared to modern primes, you have to pay a lot more. Of course, if you want to shoot with autofocus and having the controls for aperture and all of that in camera, you have to buy a modern lens. I would recommend looking at third-party options like Sigma, Tamron, and TDR Design. Of course, you can buy from Sony and Canon as well, but those first-party options are quite expensive. Considering the focal length, it really depends on your style of shooting and your subject matter, because if you're a portrait photographer, maybe look at an 80 to 105, and if you're an architecture photographer or landscape photographer who wants to capture the whole scene, maybe look at an 60mm or maybe a 28mm. But if you're someone like me who wants to have a great lens, maybe for travel photography, street photography, and maybe some portraiture here and there, and just a reliable and flexible lens, look at something from maybe 30, 35 to a 60mm. The next thing on the list are point-and-shoot cameras. For me, having a point-and-shoot camera with me while traveling or while walking around in the city is a must-have, just to take some pictures for memories or because I see something interesting and it might be a great subject. Of course, there are different kinds of point-and-shoot cameras. You can go with an analog one, like I do, or with a digital one. The thing about point-and-shoot cameras is you have to think about how much money you want to spend on them. So you can buy analog film cameras, like I did, or digital point-and-shoots. So for example, I have this half-frame Olympus Pen ES here. It has auto exposure, but the rest of it is manual. Really small and compact camera. Love the form factor, love the aspect of it being a half-frame camera. On the other side, we have more modern cameras like this Olympus Museum, which has autofocus, auto exposure, and a flash. Really great camera. I used it on different holidays, concert parties. Of course, the quality of the pictures isn't the same as with my f3, for example, but it's not meant to be. It's a point and shoot. It's a travel cam. It's a camera that everyone is able to be using. Of course, as I've said, you have to take a look at the prices. So for example, you can spend a ridiculous amount of money on a Contax T2, which is more expensive than a Hasselblad. Just because people like Zendaya and Tom Holland are using it, so it's quite hyped. Take a look at that and see which features you really want to have in a point and shoot. If you don't need a flash, look at an older point and shoot. Maybe even an old rangefinder like a Canonet QL17. That could work as a point and shoot as well. Of course, you have to do manual focus, you don't have autofocus, but great little cameras. If you don't want to use an analog point and shoot because of film prices or developing costs, you have two other options. The first one is CCD cameras. The benefit of CCD is that it's old technology and therefore most of them are quite easy to get and cheap. Many people had a CCD camera lying around, maybe you even still have one from your childhood. I do, but mine is broken sadly, and that's one of the problems with CCD cameras. It's old electronics, and if they're broken, it's hard to get them fixed or get spare parts to repair them. But the benefit is, as I said, the price and the colors, because CCD was a different sensor technology and it looks different than CMOS. It has a nostalgic vibe, kind of like VHS or film has. But don't fall for the trap that many people believe that CCD looks like film. It doesn't. It doesn't look like film at all. But it has this nostalgic vibe to it that many people, including me, really adore. On the other side, you have the modern CMOS compact cameras like the ones from Nikon, Sony and Ricoh. The problem with these is, especially with the modern models, they are quite expensive. They expect to pay around $1,000 for one of these. There are older models, of course, but they have the same issues with the technology like the CCD cameras. Last but not least on the list are tripods. The reason why I put tripods last on the list and not the lenses is the fact that I think you can get great lenses for around $50 or even lower if the lens isn't that rare or not that hyped. But I don't think you should spend less than around $100 on a tripod because it's gonna hold up your camera and your gear. So you want something that is reliable and sturdy, and I personally prefer a tripod that has many different options. So for example, this tripod I can tilt the head with, or I can put it upside down, I can transform it into a monopod, and it's capable of holding different camera systems. So for example, right now, my digital camera's on it, but I can use it with my SLRs, and I can even use it with my Hasselblad, which is a quite heavy camera if I use my 150mm, for example. Of course, tripods aren't something that every photographer needs, so keep that in mind. It's depending on your kind of photography that you're doing. So for example, if you're a street photographer or a travel photographer, I don't think the extra weight of a tripod would be really helpful to you. But if you're someone who does a lot of night photography or experiments with filters like infrared or trichroming black and white, a tripod is a must-have. So it really depends on your use case. Which list would be complete without an honorable mention? And concerning this topic, my honorable mention is a fun camera, which means a camera that maybe doesn't produce the best results, but is just a fun and unique experience to shoot with, and that motivates you to take it out and take more pictures, which is always a great thing for us photographers, to go out, take more pictures, experiment a lot and try to get better. So for example, one of my fun cams is this old Exacta. It's an old German camera from Eastern Germany, and the shutter has some issues, so the faster shutter speeds aren't quite accurate, but the waist level viewfinder is just amazing to shoot with. The Carl Zeiss lens on the front is beautiful, and it's just a camera that I don't use very often, but every time I use it, it's really fun. Or maybe you want to get into medium format photography, but you don't want to spend like your whole life savings on a kit with several lenses. What about those Olympus cameras? This one is a Agfa Isolette from the 50s, and it's in perfect working condition. So of course the lens isn't the sharpest. The viewfinder has no parallax corrections or guidelines. The fastest shutter speed is 1/200th of a damn it! Second. I'm not capable of saying that. Well, as I've said, 1/200th is the fastest shutter speed. Of course it's a little clunky, of course it's not the fastest system, but it's just so much fun to use, and I love taking it on travels, and I really enjoy many of the pictures I've taken with it. So great option. I think it's around, I don't really know, maybe 50 to $100, so really cheap, and it's just a completely different way of taking pictures. I can only recommend to every film photographer to buy an old bellows camera, because those cameras are such a joy to work with and a really unique experience. Of course, don't expect the sharpest and the best results from that, but give it a try. Those cameras are dirt cheap. You can get one for $20, maybe 50, in working condition, and it's just lovely to play around with those. Or maybe you want to try something new like a rangefinder system, which is really fun and unique to shoot with as well. This one isn't a real rangefinder, but I attached a water meter on it, which acts like the focusing assistant in a rangefinder system. Really, really fun. Of course, old camera, not the fastest shutter, but really compact, lovely lens, and it's just fun to use cameras like these on occasion. Of course, I wouldn't use a camera like this if I want to have the sharpest and most reliable results, but just to walk around with it, take some photos, have fun with it, I can only recommend to buy something like that or an old Battles camera. Lovely little cams. With this, thank you very much for watching, I really appreciate it, and I hope you found something interesting on my list. If you have a piece of gear that you would recommend to other people, feel free to leave a comment. Until next time, take care, no more pictures.